everyone. My name is Monique, and welcome to the podcast. Today, I have a very special guest, my good friend and brother in Christ, Chris. Welcome.
Hi, glad to be here, Monique.
Thanks for being with us today. Tell me a little bit about yourself and who are you going to be talking about today?
Yeah, so my name is Chris. I'm San Diego native. Been here, I don't say been here all my life, but moved around a little bit, came back. I got connected here in the South Bay more in like the last few years of my life. Grew up in North County. I'm Filipino. I do the normal like Filipino nurse thing. I'm a nurse, a registered nurse, but I do mental health. So I'm a psychiatric nurse. So I think that's part of my story also with my dad, because that part of that has led me there in terms of working through mental health and all that. I don't know, I love music, skateboarding. I love my church community at Restored South Bay too. So I'm glad to be here.
Nice. And yeah, you mentioned your dad. So that's who you're going to be sharing with us today. So tell us a little bit about your dad, some of his personality traits. And yeah, I think you have a photo too to share with us.
So my dad, let me pull up some pictures on my iPad here, but my dad's great. I think, like with anybody, we get traits from both sides, our mom and our dad. My dad, I think, is someone who is very wise. He reminds me of like Yoda from Star Wars, but he can be kind of goofy, kind of like how, this is really nerdy, like about me. I love all the Marvel, Star Wars kind of movies and all that. My dad always like seemed to joke around a lot, but the more you got to know him, he actually had a more serious like idea of life and the things that he thought about. But there's a picture of him here. My dad right there. He was playing, I guess, doing karate with me when I was, I don't know how old I was, probably like 4 or 5. I'm not,
Yeah.
He has this playful attitude, but he can be very serious. And I think a lot of the time I think some of the things in grief for me was that I didn't get to cherish as much of him when he was alive. And I think now looking back, there's a lot that I can be grateful for, but it was buried with a lot of just hurt and difficulty. So, I mean, that's part of the story, but there's just a lot of redemptive stuff I think that has happened in the last few years with my dad. But I love him. He's a part of the stuff I love comes from him, music, movies, just even reading books. Not many people read books for watching videos now. So,
true.
Yeah.
Cool. What are some things that you want to share a little bit that you miss about your dad?
Yeah, kind of touched on a little bit. So, a couple of things about my dad. It feels like a typical Filipino story. Like he was in the Navy. So when we moved, he moved over here for the Navy, brought my mom over, and then I was born here in San Diego. So I grew up here with my dad. It's like he was always trying to integrate and learn and grow wherever he was. And I think that's an idea that I kind of took from him. One of the big things that I love about him was that he was like a family guy in terms of just wanting to hang out with his kids. I remember like there would be many times when I'd go home like when I was a kid and we'd just watch like movies. I don't know if this kind of dating myself, but Blockbuster.
Hey.
So I love Blockbuster.
Yes,
we'd go like Friday nights and then we'd go check out a movie. Like you look behind like the actual like, cover of the movies trying to find the one we want. And then my dad would just like, we'd watch movies at night, like late night on Friday or Saturday. That went all the way up to like even high school, some of college, because I lived at home for a little bit for college. And just wanting to hang out, like his love language is kind of like mine, like time. And, but he loved art and I love the idea of like being able to see life through that stuff. So I never really realized it until I went to counseling and therapy and these kind of things after my dad passed. I didn't realize that, but that's some things that I really loved about my dad. I know a couple of other moments where he just showed himself was like in the garage. Like he was like a guy, he like loved the garage. That was like more of his home than the inside of the home. So he would be at the garage and, he'd play his music. He would play all like the now I feel like it's Spotify or Apple Music. It's like categories as dad rock.
Nice.
So a lot of the rock stuff, like, I don't know, Eagles, Beatles, stuff like that. And I would just see him dance. And he was so free. It made me feel like it's super embarrassing if my friends or people came over. I was embarrassed. But I think those were things that he instilled in me, like the idea of understanding life and understanding like who God is through like the stuff that people express and make through movies and music. And I miss my dad about that. And he'd have also hard chats about a lot of things when it comes to like real life situations, but he'd always use humor. So there's aspects of that I aspire to. And, I think nowadays I just am more grateful that he was the person he was when he was alive. But yeah.
Yeah, so many now, like knowing you for how many years now, you really are a lot like your dad. It's really cool to see those connections. Can you tell us a little bit about, when you found out that your dad had passed, kind of where you were at, even your body, like how did you physically react, mentally react?
Yeah. That question is like so, I would say loaded in the sense of there's so many things happening at the same time whenever we get news of anything big in our lives. I remember it was like 2017 and it was like January. I remember this because this was the first time that not the first time, but I was trying to practice more like awareness and less digital kind of devices with me. So I would turn off my phone around like the evenings, like exactly shut down my phone. I remember I was living with a couple of roommates at the time from church, and I remember this date because it was when, I don't know if you guys are sports fans, but the Chargers left to LA.
Oh man, that's a touchy subject.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. I mixed feelings about the Chargers, but that's all for another time. They interviewing Philip Rivers on like one of the talk show hosts, and it was like somewhere in LA. But turned off TV, went to bed, and then I got woken up around like I'd say 2 or 3 a.m. One of my roommates, his name is Jimmy, like he woke me up and said, "Hey, I got a phone call from one of your other friends, which is one of my friends. His name's JR." So he called Jimmy, my roommate, to try to reach me because my phone was off. So I was just so kind of surprised because, I was just waking up and all of a sudden I got a call from one of my friends. Jared, if you're listening, like super love you, bro. There's just like that love to, he mentioned like, hey, call your brother. Something's going on at home. And obviously my dad had passed. It just feels like there's a lot of God things that happen during that night and that moment and that time of life because, I think like in the middle of the night, like Jared, he told me that he never wakes up and goes to use the bathroom. He saw his phone ring and it was my brother. So that was the moment when I woke up. I was just kind of just getting my head to wrap around what just happened. I wasn't really surprised more than I was just feeling like a little numb, a little sad. But I kind of felt like it was going towards that direction when I heard the news because of the fact that like my dad did have some health issues. I just didn't know when these things were going to happen. He dealt with like a lot of health stuff like congestive heart failure and some other things, but there wasn't clear signs of when. So, I drove from my place in Chula Vista all the way up to like Rancho Mirano, if you guys know San Diego. It's, a little bit of a drive, but middle of the night, just got whatever clothes I had and just drove up. Just really numb at the moment. I felt like I had to turn on something. It felt kind of like survival mode in my heart, in my mind. I didn't really feel much more than it felt like I needed to do more things. And that was something that like at the time, I didn't really realize I was doing. It was where I think that was the moment. It made me almost feel like I was working like as a nurse because I have to care for people. And a lot of the times, like I felt like I had to care for my mom and my brother and these responsibilities that came up. I was like, you're the oldest child, so you should now turn on older child mode, like older brother. And I didn't really get to grieve until like maybe 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks after, like to really feel everything. So literally just like, console my mom, work through things with my brother. Okay, let's coordinate stuff with family. It started like, it was a shift of just being almost mechanical and robotic. And that was almost survival at the time. But I'm fortunate that like months later, weeks later, years later, going through different like groups. I know that we were in like a grief group, grief share, which is, an opportunity to talk about things with other people who have lost loved ones, things like that. But that didn't happen at the time. It just felt really like almost mechanical for me at the time. And I wish that I wasn't. I wish I was able to feel at the time, but I was literally just trying to survive. I think mentally, physically, spiritually, I didn't really want to eat. I didn't want to like actually process anything. So, but luckily, I think there was opportunities after that, years later, weeks later, after that moment. So I was sad, but it felt like I wanted to be more sad, but I wouldn't even let myself feel that at the time. So
yeah, I think that's so relatable and so common that I even myself, same thing, just like kind of numb, and you're reacting and you're like, what's going on? And just trying to gather even just information, or, seeing the paramedics come and then the coroners come. I mean, it's just such a scene, when you're there and you see your loved ones, pass.
Yeah. It feels kind of surreal. Like it didn't feel real to me until I actually got to have time to feel things. I don't know if that really makes sense, but it's like to really just sit and be very present with what's happening was really hard for me at the time. Right. So, yeah.
So what would you say? How would you describe what grief looks like for you?
Grief, what it looks like for me is, I think it's changed over time, right? It's almost like if you see, I don't know, like say for instance, like this cup, like grief, when you first see it, it looks like just you see one angle, but as you get older, as you work through things, and this is an option too, time doesn't heal wounds, I don't think. God allows us to have time in order for us to get the opportunity to heal. And I think that's something that we kind of lose or forget, like in this culture, that we think that just having time we get we can heal, but it's not. It's literally being active in that time. But what I was saying is basically grief feels like you get one angle when you first feel it, when you actually step into that. But if you have more time, you have more time to see different facets of grief. So same thing with this cup, like I see the handle in this way, but if I turn it this way, like you guys at home can see the little handle, but I don't. I see other parts of it and see the bottom, see the top. And I feel like that's how grief was for me. There's a lot of pain. There's a lot of hurt. But then I think the redemptive part of doing the work, engaging in it, grief feels like there's a mix of joy now. There's a mix of joy and pain at the same time. Kind of reminds me of like that movie Inside Out, where like you have multiple emotions, and that unlocked part of me. That unlocked that aspect of just being a person to me. It used to be very black and white for me. I'm really sad right now, really happy, really stressed out. But then grief kind of broke down those walls because I felt a mix of things at the same time. And I feel like it made me become more human with grief. And it continues to still do its work every time I engage in it. Sometimes we want to like go past kind of get over a season because it's hard. But then I think that season, when we revisit it, always can look different, and it's always healing and changing us every time we go back to it. It's like watching a movie. You can watch it the first time, maybe it wasn't that great. You can watch it again, you're like, I kind of like it. You can watch it again, I really like it. And then maybe after 4 or 5 times, you're just like, I want other people to watch it. But we get to a point like we have to wrestle with it. And I think that's grief has always been a friend that I don't always want, but I realize I really need. And it's one of those things I feel like is a gift when we see that God has allowed these areas to experience kind of like, that's what Jesus felt like. Yeah. He was hurting when he had to see his friend pass, or he was hurting, the Father was hurting, when Jesus had passed. So there's a lot of different aspects of my faith that kind of play a role with like the healing journey for what grief looked like. And it always continues to change for me. But I would say it's in a more healthier place now than it did when it was just fresh news. It felt like there's just so much happening. So
yeah. And then can you share how long has been since your dad
Oh
passed?
yeah. So my dad passed in 2017
Mm-hmm.
in January. So I would say it's already been maybe 6 years, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like
Okay.
kind of like your brother passed around the same time too. So I mean, I feel like Monique and I have been kind of like in this journey together in different ways. Like our family's interconnected with some of the just the timelines of like loss of like loved ones. But it's been 6 years, and I think every year has been very different. There hasn't been a year where I just feel one emotion or one thought. There's just been seasons of different kind of relationships that come and go with people that comfort us, comfort my family and myself, but sometimes that changes as well. But it's been about 6 years, so
Yeah.
it's flies by. I think it really flies by when I come to think of it. It just feels like, I don't want to say it feels like yesterday, but it feels quick.
Yeah.
It feels slow in the moment.
Yes.
But then it feels really fast when I look back. So
Yeah, definitely. Because when it first happened, it's so heavy. You're in the thick of it. But after, the first year and the second year, like, okay, like my life can still have joy and I can still see beauty in the world. And God is still good despite this pain and these circumstances in my life. So yeah, saying 6 years, yeah, because my middle brother, David, passed January 8th, 2017. So, and your dad was like 2 weeks after?
I think 2 weeks afterwards.
Yeah, 2 weeks afterwards. Yeah. So,
yeah. It was within the same month too. So,
yeah. What would you say has been some of your most, helpful things that helped you during your grief journey and that still is helping you now?
That's a good question. I think a lot of the times, grief could feel very isolating. It can feel like I'm the only one dealing with this. Nobody gets it. I mean, that's what I felt like. Everyone's journey is different as far as what they're experiencing. Yeah. Even having community with me, it was like it felt uncomfortable to feel like I kind of want to be by myself, but I kind of want people around. It's like, I feel like really emo. I don't know. I love like emo music and stuff, but it's like, I want people to care, but at the same time, I don't want to embrace the care sometimes. But the fact that people do care has kind of shown me like that we are people and we go through similar things. And I remember when my dad did pass, like just the freshness of it, like that week, there were a lot of people that visited me, my family. I know you and Danny visited my mom, and a lot of other people in a community of friends and family were around. It was a little overwhelming, but I will say that the idea of what has helped me is having people around to know that they're available. I think sometimes I've had moments where some of my friends or some family have been too afraid to kind of interact and talk because they said, well, I don't know, maybe you need time alone. But really, it's about just talking to the person and seeing what they need. It's like, do they want people to be around? Do they not? It's not even necessarily about like what's super therapeutic, what's going to help, but every person's going to need something different because we're wired all differently. Some people want time alone. Some people need people. Some people just need to eat and just bring food. I think there was times where we just I couldn't think of food. I couldn't think of just even asleep. It's like, I have all these things that I need to like check off the box. People are asking me things. People are, like requiring something of me or asking something. What has helped? I remember one thing that's helped is my buddy Colton. He was my old roommate. He lives in LA now, but Colton, if you're watching, thanks, bro. He actually took on they put the burden on his shoulder to say like, is there anything that you need that I can just maybe let other people know? So that way I had the time and space to breathe a little bit, to just work with my family and deal with that.
That's huge.
Yeah. And we don't ever think of that. I think a lot of the time we live in such an individualistic kind of culture, being in the West, being in America, and then trying to just live our own lives, that we forget that we are beings that need relationship, like deep relationship when things hurt. But we don't ever think we need them until we need them. And it's kind of like, it's weird to think that. Like we think, oh, everything's gonna be fine. I have people that I text or go on social media, but do people really know me or when I like need help, when they can see what I need when I don't even think I need those things? So there were times that people really were around. I think there's times that I needed by myself to just sit and to write and journal. It ebbs and flows. It's like it just depended on the week and the day, but I don't know. I think hopefully that answered the.
Yeah, no, definitely. I feel like you touched on such an important topic too, about people not knowing how to respond to someone else going through grief. It really is, it's not easy. You know, if you haven't experienced losing a loved one, honestly, like it really is hard to relate to that, you know, and, but I think it's important for people, you know, to at least reach out and text and call. And even if sometimes we don't even respond back, but like just knowing that there are people thinking of us, praying for us, or even just people would just come over and just drop off food or, you know, send me a gift card. I mean, I'm sure you, like you said, you experienced that too. Like you didn't want to think about what am I going to eat today? Or, you know, I need to do X, Y, and Z. People just showed up and did that. And so for anyone, you know, listening, I think those are real tangible things that people can do for someone.
Yeah, there was a lot of, I guess you can say decision fatigue, if that's like a term. Like I felt like there was just so much going on that I need other people to kind of help me walk through some of what's happening. In our culture, sometimes we forget that, you know, we need people when these things happen. And it's okay to do it imperfectly. Sometimes I think a lot of us that see somebody that's around, like they're hurting or dealing with something or grieving a loss of a loved one or something else, some crisis, we think that we might make it worse. But sometimes we just need to try. And that's all we can really do. I think the heart of our intentions will show more than just what actually the results of our actions or intentions, because that's all people really want, is to know that like there is support, there is care. You know, I think about myself, like I wanted people to care, and I saw that and I felt that, and I was, you know, they didn't have to, nobody had to give me food, nobody had to do these things, and we're not going to do it perfect, right? Because it's not one of the highest values that we have living in America, is like how to grieve well. We don't know how, you know, hence the podcast, right? So, like I remember Tim Keller had like a statement about grief and suffering and all that, and stated that like America prioritizes pleasure and personal freedom, and grief doesn't fall into those things. So that's why we'd rather maybe do it imperfectly and do it instead of not doing it at all, because we just don't know how. So I think that's a healthy thing for all of us to stumble our way together, whether we are grieving or have lost somebody, or with somebody that's actually experiencing those kind of things.
Yes. And it's okay to ask for help, or even say, I don't know what I need, but just check in on me, or just show up, you know?
Yeah. I will say also, I think it's harder for guys. A lot of us guys think that we got this because we need to look like we got this. But at the same time, I think there's strength in vulnerability and weakness. And I think the more we can show that, it actually shows strength, because of the fact that like you can still be yourself. Like I'm confident in myself. I'm dealing with this. I'm a person. And I think a lot of us have grown into, I know in growing up as a Filipino and as like in my culture, it just feels like a lot of like trying to act like what's been modeled is trying to see that you guys are more like can hold everything in, and we got everything. We don't need someone to comfort us. We don't need that. But literally, we're human beings, you know, and we need those kind of things. God created us with feelings. We can't just like disassociate and think we're going to be a healthy person.
Yes,
so that's kind of one of the big takeaways. Like, oh, I can be a little softy and share a lot of this, and know that I'm still strong in other parts of my life. We all have strengths and weaknesses, and there's areas of that come out in grief. Like you need to show those vulnerable sides. So
yes, that's huge. I'm so glad that you touched on that. Obviously, I'm not a guy, but yeah, that definitely is in our culture, that you have to be like this macho, strong, have it all together, take care of everyone. But like no, you need the same exact love and support as a woman,
Mm-hmm.
And in your weakness, God is made strong. And
Mhm.
so I think, yeah, that's huge. I'm glad that you shared that. What do you think is something that has surprised you, like about yourself in this grief journey? Like what you've learned, like personally for you?
Something that surprised me. I think what surprised me is, there's a couple things that come to mind, but one of them was like, I think I didn't know that I was unaware of what I didn't know. That hurts my brain a little bit, but it's like I thought I was fine, like as a person, like someone, as far as my emotions and my relationships, and it can look fine on the outside. I just knew how to relate with people, but internally, I was unaware of how much like pain or how much things that I didn't really work through or deal with, and that's what surprised me in like the hard, difficult sense. What also did surprise me was that there's so much life after working through it, and there's so much joy that I'm feeling now. It's like almost like there's a part that awakened in me, like God allowed things to wake up in me, instead of just saying, hey, this is all hard, this part of my life is suppressed, so, and it's difficult, so I'm just gonna like bubble this or just kind of compartmentalize parts of my family life and all that. Because with the passing of my dad, like there was a lot that came out of that about things I didn't work through, and I think now it's given me more, like working through it, through counseling, through meeting with people, through journaling. Like there's just so many things to just engage in it, that it's actually given me more life now. So I'm surprised that like I'm in a space that I can try to engage in it, and I'm not afraid to talk about it. And I always was afraid of these hard parts of life, but I realized that these difficult parts are they're really utilized by God to shape me as a person. Sometimes He answers prayers that we had prayed for, but not in the way we thought He would answer. Like I wanted to be more a person that could feel and be more real. And that was a prayer that I had, but it was very black and white for me with how I lived my life. Like, am I good today? Have I loved people? Do I just do this blank, 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 and just check off the box? But life isn't checking off boxes. It's actually relationship with people. It's actually going through things with other people and learning that, I'm a person too. I don't have everything together, but I do have some things I can contribute to others, and I hope people will be able to pour into me too. So there's a lot of that surprised me. And there's still more surprises, like even now. I don't even know, but there are those kind of moments where I just see that grief is like it keeps on giving. It keeps it, like how painful it is in the past can also reap like the healing in the present and the future. But we have to engage in it. I learned how to like still revisit some of those things. So
yeah, have you, while you're like having these realizations about yourself, how has your relationship with Jesus, like in this grief journey, how have you seen Him more clearly than before?
So if you guys don't know, I'm a Christian, so I believe in Jesus. I believe that relationship is real. For me, I feel like there's been more life. He's not just someone that I read in the pages of the Bible, or for some of us watch The Chosen, right? Like there's these different images that we have of who Jesus is. I think that relationship feels more dynamic than it had been before. It felt really static for me, like really, okay, did I pray today? Oh, did I journal? Okay, God, you spoke with me a little bit about, my sin or my heart about certain things. Oh, I should talk to this person. It just felt like really mechanical. But I think grief and dealing with loss has made it more organic. I think there's certain days where now I just feel like, God, I just don't feel good. And that's my prayer in my journal. Like, I just don't feel good. I don't even want to say anything that's like sounds great right now. I don't have anything uplifting or positive to say about anything, and just be able to engage in that. It's like, oh, I miss my dad. I really do. I just think that it makes it more real for me as far as that relationship and that faith that I have. I can cry now. I would only cry before, like in movies, and now it's like, man, I always cry with people when there's like moments, like at church and stuff, and people would pray for me, like Danny would pray for me, and other like church leaders or other friends, like, and it's hard to see and do that when there's no example for it as a guy. I don't think there's a lot there that frees us to just be people. We need to look like a certain way that we've been raised, but I think sometimes our faith should trump our traditions in certain things, and it's slowly been continuing to do that for me in my life. So
yeah, that's good. Yes, guys, you can cry. It's okay.
Tears are good.
They communicate value.
It's hard, but they're good.
Yeah. What is something that you and your family do to like honor, remember your dad? Is there any kind of special things that you guys do together as a family, or you individually?
There's a couple of things. Like, it's kind of like they change throughout the years. I personally will go to Coronado, which is a part in San Diego. Like, it's just so nice over there. But my dad used to work in North Island in the Navy, and Coronado always reminded me of that area. He also used to work in the toll booth too. So like, there's no more toll booth at the bridge, but just that area always reminds me of him. So every season around January, like, just when like my dad's like death anniversary or new address anniversary or going to heaven, stuff like that, I would go to Coronado by myself and just to walk around, journal a little bit, look at is it Gloria de Bay, or like the you can see across the water and see downtown. So for me, that's always a way to remember my dad. For my family and I, will always go visit like his gravesite around that time. I'd always clean it. Like, sometimes it gets kind of grassy and messy, and it's always a kind of cool thing for me to see the grass kind of grow every year. It's like it gets healthier, it changes. Tradition that we always do is have like lunch with me, my mom, and my brother, and whoever else wants to join us. We'll go to this Thai restaurant called Sayonara. We'll go there just to eat, because I remember there's certain moments that like my dad like didn't mind eating there, but it changes every year to year. I will listen to like a dad rock music, like old school Eagles, those kind of things, Journey, that stuff, like for that day. Just that's a kind of a tradition for me, just to know that like he loved that stuff, and it used to be something that would bother me growing up, and now I kind of and now it's in a way like I just remember him, and I'm thankful for just him being himself, and I can kind of do some of those kind of things around that day to just remember him.
Man, Coronado is such a beautiful place. So I'm glad that's a place that you can go and connect with him and be in like God's beauty, the water and everything. That's awesome. What would you say to someone right now, that's like listening or watching, that's in the thick, that very like it just happened, whether it's been days, months, or even the first year? What would you say, to them? Or what would you wish, someone said to you during that season for you? Because I know you're 6 years in.
Yeah.
And it has changed, but like,
what would I say? I think it's just really tough. Like whatever state that might be, whether it was like someone passing because it's just out of old age, or someone that's passed like suddenly. Any loss hurts. So there's pain there to some degree, because there is a loss. But I think sometimes when there's pain like that, it also feels like you cared, right? Be super nerdy here, but I love like WandaVision. There was like that quote that said, "What is grief if not love persevering?" Right? So it hurts. It's naturally going to hurt. And I think everyone needs different kind of support during that time. Some people, if you know yourself, you might need time by yourself, or sometimes you might need time with people. And it's really just having that awareness, or asking for that awareness for other people. Like, what do you think I need? But then also knowing that like, there's no perfect way to really grieve. And it's just going to be a hard season. It's a hard season during that time. I think having people listen if you want to share some things could be good. It's also hard when you have a lot of things happening all at the same time. But just being vocal and communicating with like friends and family about what you need will help. It may or may not happen, but at the same time, I think jumping into those very difficult conversations and moments is just reality. And it's always healthier to live in the reality of what it is instead of just avoiding it. There might be sometimes you need a break, right? Like maybe you just need to go eat a meal by yourself, watch a movie, maybe go to Disneyland. I don't know.
Yeah.
That might be helpful, but you have to go back to the reality of what is difficult, what is in the moment. And I think it just it varies from from person to person, but really communicating what you need will help. If you have that, if you have even, I don't want to assume that everybody has a community of people that can do that, but just to even reach out, like you don't have to be isolated. There's a difference between being isolated versus being in solitude where you need time alone. And sometimes there's unhealthy times where we're just kind of not wanting to engage with anyone. It can be unhealthy too. So it's really knowing what you might need. You might need to lean into, like, I know for me, I had to lean into more community, even though I kind of felt like it was draining me because I'm an introvert. I needed people at the time, and like life-giving people that we feel like I felt like that really knew who I was, where I didn't have to exert so much energy. It varies, but I just think the community aspect is very important, and being able to have that time to grieve, not just go and check off boxes that need to be figured out for someone passing. I think that's also something that's really a challenge for myself when I went through it, but also for other people, like the logistical part, and where can I just sit into just being a person during this time and being able to grieve. So it's always good to get the logistical side kind of figured out if possible before anybody passes, even for, that's just like the logistical side in my mind, but it frees up that time for people to be able to kind of work through that grief already when it happens.
Yeah, I feel like we've talked about this before, kind of there's like good distractions and like bad distractions. Like you said, yeah, maybe you need to go to Disneyland or have a meal by yourself. Like those are good things, like those will kind of like bring that joy back into you little by little. But then there also could be bad distractions where maybe you're just doing these things to numb your pain because you don't really want to address the hurt, because it is so hard. Yeah. It's like this deep, deep wound, and it's painful, and you don't want to really feel it, even though physically your body feels it, like whether you can be tired, you're sleeping more, taking naps, you get headaches or loss of appetite, or just loss of like drive to even go to work or be in social settings, whether you're an introvert, extrovert. I mean, I'm an extrovert, but yeah, I became an introvert a lot during the beginning because it was just a lot.
Kind of have to lean into the opposite of sometimes how we're wired, because it is very shocking, It's like, how do you recharge, or what do you need? Even if it may not be recharging, it actually is life-giving. I think of it where it's tough. It really is not an easy season, but it is a life-giving part of life when we engage in it. And I just are willing to like lean into that season and not ignore it, right? So,
yes, yeah. And have grace for yourself, right? Man, like you said, it's going to be perfectly imperfect, or at least trying, you know, but have grace to yourself. I was going to ask you this question about kind of like a fill in the blank.
Ooh, okay.
So think about it. No, my heart has a greater capacity to love others now because
because of other people loving me, and that's also God loving me through other people. And it feels vulnerable, it feels hard to accept, like, wow, people are seeing like all the imperfect sides of me, and I'm not really like I'm not in a space that I feel like I want to like have these parts of my life being shared. But if it's in a group of people that care, I think that's something that has actually allowed me to love because people have loved me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think now I'm also able to step into other areas where people are hurting and grieving. And I'm not afraid of it anymore. I'm not going to downplay that it hurts and it's difficult, but I'm not afraid to lean into it because it's like, oh, it's almost like grief if it was a house, you know, like your guys' house is great here. It's like maybe there's other rooms that we don't always show people, but grief, it can be a room where, you know, I've been here before. And if there's somebody else that isn't accustomed to talking about something or saying, we can lean into it. And it doesn't need to be forced. It doesn't need to be anything that's like kind of pushed into, but sometimes we are just in that season and we don't know how to navigate. It's like when we're in grief, it's like sometimes we're in this room that we step into. We're like, I didn't even choose to go in this room, you know, but I'm in here. But it always helps if there's somebody there. And I feel like someone that's already gone through it kind of can give us a little bit of a picture of how they went through it and kind of sorting out what happened. And I feel like for me, I get an opportunity now to at least be someone that's there that can not be afraid to engage in it and ask some questions or share some things. We can't go somewhere or we can't lead someone somewhere we've never been to. And how do we do that? That doesn't make sense, right? We need to allow God to lead us to those areas, let life lead us in those areas. And then now, if other people are walking through those different seasons, I'm like, oh, this is what it looked like for me. You know, it's almost like teaching someone, I don't know, how to drive or how to cook or how to do something new. They've never done it. And if you've done it before, you're like, I've messed up so many times doing this. But at the same time, I think there's life in stepping into those areas with other people. And I think I'm able to do that now. And that's only because other people have been willing to step into it with me, feel the pain and the hurt. I remember those moments now when I look back, like when I would be grieving about my dad and, be really sad, like the first initial like month or so. And I gave so many hugs to people that I think like over time I felt loved already. And I feel like I needed to hug them instead because they looked like they were hurting much more. And it felt like there were already times where when I look back now, that God was healing me to say like, I can love other people now. And that was also early on, like people needed a long hug. And I'm like, okay, I think I'm done hugging, but I thought I needed it, but I think you needed it more. Yeah. And it's just one of those surprising moments just to realize, we can give back once people give to us, or because just never realized that I can love people now in a different way, in another kind of setting, and not being afraid of those conversations, of doing certain things or saying something or anything like that.
Yeah. Well, Chris, thanks so much for being here today and sharing your story. And can you share your dad's name?
Oh, my dad's name is Manolo Navarro, but he goes by Manny, Uncle Manny, or his nickname in the family was Totoy, which is like little boy Totoy Navarro. But I love my dad. He's hanging out in heaven, doing his thing. So,
yes.
Jesus.
And we're going to see him again, And so, thank you for sharing Uncle with us and your grief journey and story.
I did want to say one thing though, regarding heaven. So when I think about like a lot of the things about grief, we just sometimes miss out. I can easily have regrets of like, I should have done this or should have done this. Why didn't I get to, so-and-so hang out? I should have said something, or all these different things. But I think one of the things about knowing that there's heaven reminds me and gives me peace in my heart to know I don't need to do everything on earth, because if this heaven is a reality, we are going to get these moments to be able to interact with our loved ones, be able to ask some of those questions, do some of those things later. But it's that faith of trusting that it's going to be there. So, I super thankful that my dad was in my life for this season of my life on earth, and now he's in heaven.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that perspective. Yeah, I think that's always important. That's eternity, So Yay. Thanks, Chris, for being here.
Pleasure
Thank
to be
you,
here.
everyone, for joining today, and we'll see you next time. Bye.